Scotland. Hare Krishna devotees, thank you all for coming. So we have a very, very special guest with us, His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu, one of the most beloved and respected spiritual leaders of our society. I know Prabhu for many, many years. I'm a ardent follower of him. He is my mentor, Siksha Guru. I'm a distant admirer of Kalakantha Prabhu. It's my dream to have him here, and he is here. Prabhu, on behalf of Hare Krishna Temple of Austin, I'd like to sincerely express my gratitude to you for giving us your holy association this morning. And also it's my absolute privilege and honor to introduce Kalakantha Prabhu to all of you. Here is a short bio. His glories are unlimited. It's so in the interest of time, I'm going to just read what I was given. So His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu is a senior disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and an accomplished Bhakti practitioner for more than maybe 50 years. And he's a teacher and initiating guru, a Diksha Guru as well. He specializes in translating Sanskrit and Bengali Bhakti text for English-speaking audience. For the past 12 years, he has developed the Krishna House project, revolutionary. It's become a phenomenon in our movement. And in Florida, actually, in Gainesville, into a dynamic and successful college preaching center. In recent years, Prabhu has led the opening of many Krishna houses in several cities of United States and Canada, and inspiring large group of youth to experience the transformative life of Bhakti. As I said, this is just a limited glorification, but his glories are unlimited. So with that, let us welcome His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu, loudly chanting Hare Krishna mantra one time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Over to you, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So good to be here. And it's so wonderful to see what you all have accomplished in Austin. It's just quite inspiring. Thank you for inviting us. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabara Givaridhari Gopi Janabara Givaridhari Yachodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janabala Givari. Yachodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamunati Chari. Yamunati Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Hare. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nasta Praishvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Satyasara Prabhu, thank you very much for inviting us today. We have several devotees visiting from Krishna houses, and we have Madanga Prabhu, who's our national Krishna House coordinator, Kartikeya Prabhu from Krishna House Houston, Shruti Sagar Prabhu, who's the president of the Krishna House in Gainesville, and of course, Prabhupada Priya, who's now serving as regional secretary here or zonal supervisor, here in Texas, after many years of being the educational director in Gainesville. And Janaki, maybe back in Estonian, what is Estonian? Austinite, who is, yes, a graduate of Krishna House in Gainesville as well, and Grand Rapids and Brooklyn and any other venues of preaching. Good to see you. So this morning we're reading, I wanted to select a special verse since Satyasara Prabhu gave me that license. So if you have your Bhagavatams available here, it's 1518 for this morning's reading. Again, very nice to be here. Just so impressed with what you have done in just a few years here in Austin, though. The potential and the future is very bright. So this is a verse from the chapter in which Narada Muni is instructing his disciple Srila Vyasadeva about Srimad Bhagavatam. And he has told him how he's written many of the Vedic literatures and the corollary literatures, and yet has not directly addressed devotional service to Lord Krishna. So here he is giving one of the philosophical reasons for that instruction. Tasyaiva heto prayate tako vido na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadham Alabhyate dukkha varanyata sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira ranghasa Chasyaiva heto prayate tako vido na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadha Kalabhyate dukkha varanyatak sukham kalena sarvatra gabhira ranghasa. Please chant. Jaiva heto prayate tako vido Anjaladyate yad brahmatam uparyadha Labhyate dukkha varanyata sukham Alena sarvatra gabhira ranghasa. Tasyaiva heto prayate tako vido Labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadham Alabhyate dukkha varanyata sukham Kalena sarvatra gabhira ranghasa Tasyaiva heto prayate tako vido Labhyate dukkha varanyata sukham Kalena sarvatra gabhira ranghasa. Anyone else like to chant? Tasyaiva heto prayate tako vido Labhyate yam brahmatam uparyadha Kalabhyate dukkha vadanyata sukham. Kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasam. Tasyaiva hetu. Sarvatra gabira ramhasam. So let's say the synonyms together, please. I assume we can read them. Tasya, for that purpose, eva, only. And translation altogether, please. Persons who are actually intelligent, from the topmost. It can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them. Who would like to read the purport for us?
Every man, everywhere, trying to obtain the greatest amount of sense enjoyment by various endeavors. Some men are busy, engaged in trade, industry, economic development, political supremacy, etc. And some of them are engaged in fruitive work to become happy in the next life by attaining higher planets. It is said that on the moon, the inhabitants are fit for greater sense enjoyment by drinking somarasa, and the pitraloke is obtained by good charitable work. So there are various programs for sense enjoyment, either during this life or in the life after death. Some are trying to reach the moon or other planets by some mechanical arrangement, for they are very anxious to get to such planets without doing good work. But it is not going to happen. By the law of Supreme, different places are meant for different grades of living beings according to the work they have performed. By good work only, as prescribed in the scriptures, can one obtain birth in a good family, opulence, good education, and good bodily features. We see also that even in this life, one obtains good education or money by good work. Similarly, in our next birth, we get such desirable positions only by good work. Otherwise, it would not so happen that two persons born in the same place at the same time are seen differently placed according to previous work. But all such material positions are impermanent. The positions in the topmost Brahmaloka and in the lowest Patala are also changeable according to our own work. The philosophically inclined person must not be tempted by such changeable positions. He should try to get into the permanent life of bliss and knowledge, where he will not be forced to come back again to the miserable material world, either in this or that planet. Miseries and mixed happiness are two features of material life, and they are obtained in Brahmaloka and in other lokas also. They are obtained in the life of the demigods and also in the life of the dogs and hogs. The miseries and mixed happiness of all living beings are only of different degree and quality. But no one is free from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Similarly, Everyone has his destined happiness also. No one can get more or less of these things simply by personal endeavors. Even if they are obtained, they can be lost again. One should not, therefore, waste time with these flimsy things. One should only endeavor to go back to Godhead. That should be life's mission. That should be the mission of everyone's.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Again, the translation. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, although we do not desire them. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This verse is very cosmic in its scope, going from the topmost planet down to the lowest. And so in the purport, Srila Prabhupada discusses this, and these are things which are a good example of how reading in the Vedic literatures can be very fantastic and hard to relate to for people who are not acquainted with the tradition. Prabhupada talks about how people are trying, those who know the Vedic tradition know there can be elevation to higher planets through pious deeds and good works. And people actually seek this because on the higher planets, there's more material enjoyment. The current goal for many people is to find a way to go to another planet because this one is almost certainly going to be ruined. So visionaries tend to think, let's figure out how humanity can migrate. And this is considered, again, visionary, but it's actually quite short-sighted because the problems that exist on this planet also exist on every other planet. And therefore, Narada Muni is saying to Vyasadeva, why promote this sort of practice of what is a reality in the Vedic tradition? Because it's so short-sighted. There are so many books which Vyasadeva had written, including the Puranas, other Puranas, in addition to the Bhagavad Purana. And these Puranas have various pious recipes for getting certain results. I remember in the old days, and in the good old days, when ISKCON was smaller and simpler, everyone observed Ekadasi on the same day. Whatever day it was in Mayapur, that was what it was. And we'd call each other temple to temple, collect, because there was nothing like the calendar organized. No, of course, no internet, anything. You call and say, is Mr. Ekadasi there? No, he's coming in Tuesday. So, so this is how we observed. Very, very simple. But then later, shortly after Srila Prabhupada's departure, actually, one devotee wrote a book about all the Ekadasis described in the various Puranas and all the benefits you get from observing them and this and that. It was a very revolutionary book. All sorts of things then were introduced that were never introduced before, such as like fasting all day, the Nirjala Ekadasi. And all of these Ekadasis are described with their various pious benefits. I'm talking about this because I'm observing Ekadasi this morning. We were a day behind you in Texas and Florida. Anyway, this is just one example. The idea of these pious deeds is to get a better situation in the future. The American author Emerson, I believe, described after studying Indian philosophy for some time, described the West as that peculiar part of the world where people think they only live one life. So we can see how understanding the eternal nature of the soul can broaden one's vision to see, in my next birth, I want to get a better situation. Therefore, let me do things now, which will contribute towards that better future. This is understanding the system and knowing how the system works, but the purpose of using the system is wrong. This is Narada's point. Because even if we get the highest position, we'll still have the same problems. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Brahma Bhuvanal Loka. Kim Punarvatino Arjuna. Even on the planet of Lord Brahma, the topmost position you can get in this universe, there is still the problem of repeated birth, death, disease, and old age. And Brahma lives this vast life with vast powers, and yet he could not grant Hiranyakashipu eternality, immortality. He could not grant him immortality. So what is our position? What is our hope? The great Mahatma of Florida, Walt Disney, California and Florida, after his great success in making the happiest places on earth, resolved that he wanted to see if his body could be preserved after and revived after his death. So he used part of his vast wealth to refrigerate his body with various preservatives, I suppose. Anyway, somehow or other, he was hoping in the future they'll figure out what killed me and they'll be able to undo it, and I can resume my career as a mouseketeer. So this is the futile kind of thinking of those who don't understand the Vedic system. But the Bhagavatam here presupposes we do have that understanding. So let's just take it from that point. Queen Kunti says that the results of pious deeds, Janma, Aishwarya, Shruta, Sri, a good birth, influence, education, and wealth, are all impediments to the actual goal of the Vedic literature. These things are obstacles, and only those who are kinchana gochara, who have given up or who are freed of the ambition for these things, can understand Krishna full-heartedly. That is the actual goal of all the Vedic literatures, as Krishna explains to Arjuna in the Gita, Vedaischa sarvairaham eva vedyo. I have compiled all the Vedas, and I'm to be known by the Vedas. So what is the point in studying ancillary approaches? The only value in the other system of Vedic literature systems is for those who are materially motivated. So for those who are materially motivated and have a long-term vision that, okay, my next life I will enjoy more if I am pious. And as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, we see that result even in this life. Parents are always admonishing their children, get a good education. Why? Because if you have a good education, you can have a good job, and then you can have money, and then you can be happy in life. And regardless of religious affiliation, this is a universal admonition from parent to child. Do some austerity now of going to school, and then in the future you'll enjoy. So you see, it's basically the same concept. There was a study at Harvard some years ago in which they presented children, maybe 5 years old or something, with this challenge. You can have one candy right now, or you can have 5 candies in 5 minutes. Deferred gratification. So then they filmed the children. They said, if you eat this in the next 5 minutes, then you can't have any more. But if you just wait 5 minutes, then you can have 5. So they filmed the children touching, smelling, rubbing, just trying to restrain themselves. And those who were successful in waiting 5 minutes proved over time to have something like 10 times the financial prosperity of those who could not wait. So delayed gratification is an example of a pious approach to life, a thoughtful, a strategic approach. Therefore, parents encourage education. We're all admonished to exercise because that will keep our body from having various sufferings in the future. Delayed gratification for the sake of something better. This is called Shreya, as in Sanskrit, right? The future benefit. So the problem, again, with understanding that much is it's only a little perspective. It doesn't see the bigger picture. If we apply the same strategy to the bigger picture, then we come to devotional service. That is the ultimate in delayed gratification. It's the ultimate in strategic planning. It's the ultimate in shreyas, in looking at our long-term benefit. Why is this? This is because the word is used here in this verse, brahmate, which means wondering. Anyone remember another verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita where this word is used? Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. After wandering all throughout the universe, one who is bhagyavan, who is fortunate, meets the devotee of Krishna. And having met the devotee of Krishna, one has the opportunity to get this bhakti lata beach, the seed of devotional service. Devotional service, in other words, surpasses anything we can experience in our lives, for the simple reason that it invokes the natural position of the soul. In the ordinary course of things, people are negligent of their spiritual existence. And as a result, there's always, as Prabhupada puts it so eloquently in the introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a pinprick in society at large. In other words, there is a low degree of fulfillment. And it's so pervasive that people don't even know it's a low degree of fulfillment. There is no sense of how much more life could bring with the attention being paid to the soul that is being paid to the short-term enjoyment. We start on, in other words, on the platform of the soul. Again, the beauty of Indian culture is that it's widely understood there is a soul. But it's not widely understood how to get the most benefit for that soul. That is a more elusive form of knowledge. For that, we need the association of the devotees. Just recently, we passed the, I guess what is it, 57th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's arrival in North America. And was it September 17th, I believe. And he wrote this beautiful, very inspiring poem about how, Krishna, I don't know why you brought me to this terrible place. This is a great inspiration for anyone who's doing outreach. So please make my words suitable so I can relate to these people. This place is covered with passion and ignorance. I don't know why you brought me. Anyway, let me do my best. So you make me dance. So at that time, the Beatles were singing Help. Rolling Stones were singing I Can't Get No Satisfaction. And the number one song was, how does it feel to be on your own with no direction home, like a rolling stone, a complete unknown? Yeah, so this is the culture in which Srila Prabhupada introduced this alternative. So just see how much of a gap there is for the people that Prabhupada was reaching. He first had to teach them very clearly how they are not this body. They did not have this. We did not have this understanding. It was never articulated in our colleges or in our churches or in our families. Nobody knew this. So first Prabhupada had to start convincing us about the existence of the soul. Srila Prabhupada went to MIT, the foremost technological university in America, and he challenged them. Where's the department of knowledge in this university where you can learn the difference between a dead body and a living body? And nobody could answer because there was no department. Maybe philosophy, but maybe religion. But even in those departments, it's all theoretical. It's like if you teach philosophy, but you believe in any philosophy, then it discredits you. If you teach religion, but you believe in any religion, then you're discredited. See, it's at least in those days, that was the standard. So the point is that we have this opportunity to go beyond just understanding you're not this body to the point of understanding what is our constitutional position as souls. And this is where Krishna consciousness begins. You know, there is a science, as Krishna explains all the various manifestations of energies in this material world in the Gita. Bhumir apanalo vayu kamano buddhir evacha ahankara. So these bina prakriti ashtada, these 8 separated material and spirit, separated material energies of mind. all of them have a science associated with them. For example, the science of Bhumi, of Earth, is a geology. Water, we could say chemistry. Fire, we could say electricity. There are sciences associated every step of the way. Philosophy, the science of philosophy is, or the science of mind rather, is philosophy, or psychology. Yeah, the science of intelligence is philosophy. Right? But when we get to the science of ahankara, a false ego, then we're talking about Krishna consciousness, that point at which spirit identifies with matter. So Krishna consciousness begins with this understanding. The question is, how do we apply it? How do we make the most of this knowledge? There is a natural inclination in this world to seek happiness. That in and of itself is not wrong. Ananda Maya Vyasa. Yes, the soul by nature is pleasure seeking. That's a given. What Srila Prabhupada said was that the problem is you do not know, you want to enjoy, that's all right, that's natural, but you do not know how to enjoy. We think that our enjoyment is associated with the material body, and we don't know the pleasure of the spiritual enjoyment. So what is that spiritual enjoyment? It comes from the liberating experience of being freed of the modes of nature. Within the modes of nature, there are various happinesses described in the Bhagavad Gita. You know, happiness in the mode of goodness is delayed gratification. It's nectar in the beginning, poison in the beginning, but nectar in the end. Happiness in the mode of passion is immediate gratification. That is pleasure in the beginning and poison in the end. But happiness in the mode of ignorance is just misery from start to finish, like alcohol or drug addiction or smoking. There's no pleasure really at any point. So all of these are material types of pleasures. The pleasure of Krishna consciousness, of feeding the soul, of engaging the soul in its constitutional position, that pleasure is anandam buddhi vardhanam. It's an ever increasing ocean of pleasure. We are challenged as devotees, therefore, to be able to find pleasure in our Krishna consciousness every day. If we don't find it in our Krishna consciousness, we will look for it in our sense gratification. So how do we find happiness in our bhakti practice every day? Yeah, of course, it begins with knowledge. We have to know clearly, we have to have some understanding about what we're doing. It is possible that by accident one can find happiness in spiritual life, but it will be hard to sustain. But systematically practicing and deriving happiness every day, that takes practice, but that's what we're aspiring to do. In a japa seminar last weekend in New Vrindavan, Mahatma Prabhu was saying how he once sat down next to Dravida Prabhu, another godbrother, and at the beginning of their japa session, he saw Dravida saying something to himself. So he said, "What did you say?" He said, "Now I'm beginning my favorite activity of the day." So is japa our favorite activity of the day? Japa is like a wrestling match. So it's, it is, okay, it's me in the mind. Now, who's going to win today? There used to be in Los Angeles temple in New Dwarka, there used to be a bell, because you're supposed to make a sound when you enter the temple room. So there was a bell, and Vaisheshika Prabhu came in one morning and rang the bell, and then he struck a boxer's pose. Like it's like in boxing, they ring the bell on the fighters. Said, now I'm going to be fighting my. So this, let's talk about japa, because that really is a challenge. Japa can be hell or it can be heaven. It can be like miserable or it can be blissful. What is the difference? The difference is understanding the purpose of our japa. We are calling out to Krishna. We are challenging the modes of nature. We're challenging our mental conception of how to find happiness. It hasn't worked, and now we're confronting it. So to fight the mind, we sometimes use this phrase, but it's to fight the mind actually means to surrender to the mind, because the mind wants to fight. Okay, we're going to fight. Yeah, we may fight, but we need to fight with intelligence. Not with strength of will as much as with strategy. And the acharyas use the strategy of treating the mind not as an enemy, but as a friend. Even in the Gita, Krishna makes this description, right? One should befriend the mind. So how do we befriend the mind when it has this reservoir of sense and enjoyment and that it would like to continue to impose upon us? We make friends with the mind by just understanding it is going to be a pain in the neck. Just like parents have children and they know they're going to be a pain in the neck. So the mind is like that child. Yes, I will get to you in a few minutes. I will get to you when I finish my chanting. Just like Haridas Thakur addressed the prostitute who came to seduce him. He didn't say, go away, leave me alone. He said, you just please be seated while I finish my chanting. See, so in this way, we make friends with the mind. And we say, oh, yes, I understand you want this, that, and the other thing. Please just be seated over here. And as soon as I'm finished chanting, I will certainly take care of your desires. So fighting, on the other hand, to fight the mind is actually to acquiesce to the mind. The mind's got our attention. It's like if you've ever been to the grocery store and you see an unskilled mother trying to deal with a rebellious child, a petulant child. It's painful to watch, isn't it? She's being as childish as the child, used threatening, bribing, and it never works. Because what the child wants is attention, and it's working. The child's getting attention. So what the skilled mother does is acknowledge, oh, I see, you want to have that candy bar. That's interesting. Okay, we're going on. We'll see about that. The skilled mother does not get disturbed by the uncooperative child. Similarly, the skilled chanter does not get disturbed by the uncooperative mind, rather accepts, okay, my mind is not cooperating. That's to be expected. I'm going to go on chanting and I will deal with these things later. One devotee asked at that japa seminar, if I have a good idea while I'm chanting, shouldn't I write it down? Shouldn't I stop? And Mahatma Prabhu was rather skeptical about that. Because chanting does that, doesn't it? You ever experience it? When you're chanting, you get, wow, so many visions and inspirations and ideas. Right? So, and they're related to service. What does that show? That shows that our mind has managed to take the wheel again. Well, I'm thinking about service. It's spiritual. I'm not calling to Krishna from the core of my heart. No, but I'm thinking, at least I'm thinking about, well, it is a refined kind of Maya. And then there's a time for thinking of service, but it isn't japa time. So yes, if you have some idea and you're afraid you'll forget it, all right, take a moment, write it down. But just the point is that whatever the mind produces, being able to just let it go. That's how we can unlock the joy of chanting. And every day it's a practice to do that. Just as if you were going to the gym every day and you start out with 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, there's some pleasure in being able to lift more, right? So over time, you feel the sense of accomplishment. Japa is like that. Over time, we gain a sense of, okay, I have made some progress today. And some of you may experience this also. I know for myself that the longer I'm into my japa period, the more enjoyable it becomes typically. So it used to be the opposite, but over time, it's kind of turned now as make like little glacial progress, getting my mind to just give me a break. So the mind is like that. It is petulant, it is spoiled, it is used to being in charge. But the joy of navigating that is the joy of yoga, is the joy of bhakti. And the devotees who have accomplished this are those with whom we want to associate, because we get just by their association on very subtle platform, we get that experience of what it's like to live above the mental platform. So in this, just one last point in this regard, I wanted to speak about in this verse. The happiness in life comes of its own accord, just as miseries come of their own accord. Such a powerful statement, isn't it? Such a very foundational philosophy for life. Even people who don't understand Krishna consciousness understand this point, right? Not to be too affected by the comings and goings. I have this favorite story about the Chinese farmer. The Chinese farmer had a son, and one day the son out in the field caught a wild horse from a group of wild horses that was running across their land. He managed to capture one. Horses were very valuable in the village, so all the neighbors were saying to the farmer, "Oh, you're so fortunate, your son caught a horse." And the farmer said, wise old farmers, maybe yes, maybe no. So then the son was training the horse, breaking him in for work, and the horse threw him off and the son broke his leg and he couldn't work. And so all the neighbors said, "Oh, you're so unfortunate. Your son can't work." And the wise old farmer said, maybe yes, maybe no. And then the kingdom went to war. And so the soldiers came to conscript all the young men to the army. But the young man couldn't go because his leg was broken. They said, "You're so fortunate." Maybe yes, maybe no. So that, at least that response will serve us well. That when there's some setback, we say, okay, maybe it looks bad now, maybe it won't look so bad in a few days. And if something good happens, same thing. Oh, okay, well, this is great now, but I know it's not going to last forever. So I'm not going to pin all my hopes on this happiness. So in the 6th canto, there's the beautiful story of Maharaj Chitraketu. And he had everything, but he didn't have what he wanted, which was a son. And so he asked some sages, "Please, can you arrange by your mystic power somehow or other? I'm not able to have a son, even though I have so many wives." And they gave some prescription. He followed the prescription with his favorite wife, and then the son was born. But the sages warned him, this son will be, what is it? Was it Harsha Shoka? Yes, Harsha Shoka, thank you. He'll bring you happiness and distress. So King Chitraketu was thinking, okay, he'll be a teenager at some point. So I can live with that. But then the jealous co-wives poisoned the baby. And this child had brought them so much joy and fulfillment, turned into a great source of misery. It's said that a good son is a great boon, but a bad son is like a curse on your life. Just goes on and on, draining and giving you grief. And you never know. It's a gamble. You have a child, and are they going to bring me happiness? Are they going to bring me distress? They're inevitably going to bring both. But we do that because we are generally on this bodily platform, and this is our duty. So we have children, and then they bring us happiness and distress. But the happiness and distress that we get in this world is all relative. It's all to be expected. The distress that comes in the devotee's life has two special characteristics. First of all, it is minimized from what it should have been. Karmani nirdahati tinchuta bhakti bhajam. Lord Brahma says that the Lord gives us just a little taste, a little token of what karma we were due as practicing devotees. That means whatever degree of pain we might be experiencing at any given moment is much less, and we can be therefore grateful that I'm just getting a token of what I was due. The other quality of the suffering that devotees undergo is that it brings about spiritual advancement. If we were not convinced that this world is a place of suffering, why would we want to get out of it? This is an advanced concept. And sometimes I see devotees making the mistake of trying to start their introduction to Krishna consciousness with it. One of my good friends, Brahmatirtha Prabhu, was a Peace Corps worker, nice Jewish boy from New Jersey. And he married a nice Jewish girl from New Jersey. or he was engaged. And then he went overseas for the Peace Corps. And there he met Srila Prabhupada and became a devotee. And he comes back, Hare Krishna, nice Jewish fiance. So she was not interested, but she was tolerant. And he would take her to the temple. And when he took her, the devotees would say, oh, another preaching target. And they would tell her, oh yeah, you're suffering in this material world. You should chant Hare Krishna. And she would say, what are you talking about? I'm not suffering. What is this place? Everyone's telling me I'm suffering. So not a good place to start our introduction. Why? Because people think I'm enjoying. No, you're suffering. What? But where are you coming from? So the alternative to that is to understand as we progress that our suffering brings us progress in spiritual life. Our suffering is like the injection of a vaccine. It's a pinprick, but then it prevents more suffering. It's our suffering in Krishna consciousness is like a visit to the dentist. The dentist causes us pain. We try to minimize it, but inevitably it's painful. But it's a minimal amount of pain that we're getting for the sake of avoiding much more pain down the road. So in this way, devotees navigate life recognizing that the suffering we're getting is for a benefit. And what is that benefit? That it inures us to this particular kind of enjoyment that has brought us the suffering. For example, if we have children, then we will inevitably suffer. And then we get the sense of, okay, been there, done that. Just as an example. And then we're elevated to a position where we feel, okay, I don't need to do this again in order to have this experience. Children bring great joy, and then they bring great sorrow, and then, okay, now been through that. So therefore, devotees can welcome suffering in a much more congenial way. It is not happening independently of Krishna. It is not happening by karma. Whatever suffering a devotee undergoes is directly controlled by Krishna. Krishna has written out the prescription and fulfilled it at the same time. So we don't like it. And that's a good sign that we are really getting more deeply convinced that we want to end our sojourn of birth and death in the material world. We're getting convinced on a level that will actually enable us to deal with the inevitable vicissitudes of life without being disturbed. That wonderfully elevated position is possible only when we are fixed on the goal of going back to Godhead. If we have any vested interest in enjoying this world, then we have to come back and experience it. But when we're deeply convinced, no more, then we can go back to Godhead. Now, this is I'll just conclude with this point, because this is a very elevated position where we are so intent on going back to Godhead that the sufferings of our lives kind of bounce off us. It doesn't happen overnight. It can take decades to become more comfortable in that way of life. But the great benefit of practicing is that when we need it, when all of our capacity to enjoy this world has been taken away from us towards the last phases of our life in this body, we will know what to do. We will be prepared. And I have seen, and perhaps some of you have seen, how when devotees are leaving their bodies, they become very fixed in Krishna consciousness. I saw this in my parents who lived long lives and then died. My mother lived to be 100. But I saw that she had a very active social life, and then her friends started dying, and his social life started restricting down to 2 or 3 people. And then she used to go out, she used to drive, and then she couldn't drive anymore, and then she would go in the van, and then she didn't want to do that anymore. So it just kind of stayed in her home. And then it was kind of like in her room. And at the very end, it was just like in the chair in front of the television. The world just shrank. And so similarly, when we all leave our bodies, our worlds will just reduce to just Nothing. We can't do anything anymore. All of our senses are finished. But then we have Krishna. And so we're not without direction. We have a direction home. We know what to do. And we're very prepared for that. Every time we pick up our beads or to go to a class or go to a kirtan, we're preparing for that. Then we are empowered to let the happiness and distress of this world just kind of bounce off us. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions, reflections? Prabhupada Priya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice class. I have a question. You were talking about how, like for non-devotees, happiness and distress come and go according to karma. But for devotees, it's different, that happiness and distress are directly managed by Krishna. But you also said that as devotees, we are challenged in our Krishna consciousness to find happiness in our in our devotional practices. So we're trying to experience joy in bhakti, but that joy is managed by Krishna. So to what extent can we squeeze joy out of our devotional practices if we don't have control over how it's meted out?
No, the material happiness and distress, that's managed by Krishna. Our ability to enjoy bhakti, that's up to us. We have that latitude. Nothing can stop us, in other words, if we are determined to take pleasure in our devotional service.
So what I understood is that a couple of ways that we can find joy in devotional service. One is understanding the purpose, why we're doing it. And another is getting absorbed, like really being absorbed in it. What are some other ways? Are there any other ways?
Serving the devotees can be very joyful, inexplicably joyful. If we study the lives, like Srila Prabhupada's life and the lives of the Acharyas, we see how they are giving Krishna consciousness to others, even at their own risk of material suffering. And that is a great joy. We talk about, the joy of parenthood, and there is great joy in parenthood, without a doubt. But spiritual parenthood is freed of the various anomalies of material parenthood. Not entirely, but to a large extent, because in other words, if we're helping people in their spiritual lives, we get the joy of seeing them grow. We get the joy of seeing them become absorbed and more successful in dealing and navigating their lives. We sometimes see them fall down. Srila Prabhupada said that he would cry when he saw devotees leaving. But that's again the risk we take to share Krishna consciousness. But yes, that's a great joy in helping people in their spiritual lives. As we progress, again, that becomes more and more of our absorption. And as Krishna says, because he reciprocates so much with that, what is that verse from the 18th chapter? It's Nacha tasmin manuseshu kaschin me priyakritama. No one is more dear to me than one who shares the message of Bhagavad Gita. So as we progress, we do that more and more. Great source of joy. Once Srila Prabhupada was challenged by a student, "Are you happy?" This was at a college, I think in France, where they're very revolutionary. "Are you happy?" And Srila Prabhupada, very intelligently, when you're asked a challenging question, how do you respond? With a question. Right, like in tennis. Somebody hits a good shot, you hit a good shot back. So he said, "If I tell you, will you believe me?" Now, what's a person going to say, right? He's going to say, no. Then anyone in the audience can see he's a fool. Close-minded. So he had to say yes. And then Prabhupada said, "Yes, I am happy." Other thoughts? Is that all right? Oh, Priya. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, that's a wonderful class.
My wife hears you say that, I'll be in big trouble, please.
Okay. So my question is like every day morning in front of deities. So I do prayer like Ajnanatimrandasya, that the full till that Hare Krishna mantra. I'll do that. So is that okay, or we need to do any specific prayers like Prahlad or Kunti or any other thoughts also? What will that will enhance love towards Krishna, increase or my bhakti?
Yes, yes, that's another example of finding joy in bhakti, some particular prayer or some particular puja. The only caveat on that is that it should be confidential between you and Krishna and not shared. If is anyone taking the ISKCON Disciples course, they quote Rupa Goswami, you should not say the name of your guru or the name or share your vow or your ishtadate. Why? Because if you share these things, it will cause conflict in the association of devotees. Well, I say the whole Mangalacharna every day before Japa. How about you, Prabhu? So we keep these things to ourselves, between us and Krishna. Krishna, for you, I'm going to take this vow. So this is a great question at this time of year. It's very nice and auspicious to take a vow for Kartik coming up in a couple of weeks here. You take that vow, but keep that vow confidential.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Go ahead. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You mentioned about delayed gratification. So it, and also mentioned it is a pious thing. So how does that work in materially as well as spiritually?
Yes. See, that's the thing. It works materially. Because if we go to college, we have a better chance of getting a job. If we get a good job, then we work hard, we get money. If we have money, then we can have more options in life. However, in spiritual life, the happiness begins with confronting our minds. Okay. And that's a prerequisite. It doesn't preclude anything else we might do in life. But do we do it with controlled senses or uncontrolled senses? Do we do it as masters of our minds or servants of our minds? We can do it either way. We can go to school, we can do the job, we can make money. That's the first question is, are we going to do it as a service to our senses or as a service to Krishna? Therefore, this is considered the foundation of civilized education for any person. Before your Varna and Ashram and all that, first Komara Acharet Pragyo Dharmam Bhagavatam. From very childhood, one should learn how to take pleasure in spiritual life. That's the beauty of children, that they can very happily chant mantras and not chant japa necessarily, but they love kirtan. They love to hear stories about Krishna, and they can maybe learn to chant a little japa. But that should be a prerequisite before entering one's material career. This is the very essence of Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Krishna didn't tell Arjuna not to fight. He told him to fight for a different purpose. Mama nusmara yudhyacha. Now, always think of me and then fight. And that is delayed gratification to learn Krishna consciousness, but it's the one that it brings lasting results. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So I'm curious to know more about the difference between finding joy in things that we love as an individual versus the things that we have to do because of being in an organization or because of cultural expectations. Can you speak on that balance?
Yes. So the impersonalist idea is that society is troublesome, let me just go away from it. Right? And the problem with that position is it's not sustainable. So the verses from the 10th canto, Aruya Krishnena Param Padam Pata Padatito Yuspadangraya. In that renunciation of society, you may get some realization of your spirituality, but you'll inevitably fall down. Srila Prabhupada poetically compared it to cockroaches in the commode. And the cockroach who is stuck in the commode may climb up the side because it's slick porcelain, they'll fall down again. So without relationships, we can't sustain our spiritual life, but relationships are troublesome. So to have responsibilities in an organization, it appeals to a few who have a broader realization about the joy of sharing Krishna consciousness, because our organization is meant for sharing Krishna consciousness. And so many are not. So many organizations are really built around bodily designations. Like in conservative or Orthodox Judaism, for example, you can't even be an Orthodox Jew unless you have an Orthodox Jewish mother. It's a prerequisite to be in the organization. There's no sense of mission. So our organization, and we're specifically, I'm sure your question specifically has to deal with this. How do we navigate differences that inevitably arise amongst people in ISKCON? And those sufferings can be very pronounced because we are dedicated to the spiritual path and someone else is dedicated to the spiritual path. And then they look like jerks to us all of a sudden because they don't want to do it the way we're doing. And then again, the inclination is there, let me just withdraw. But that's the impersonalist approach. See, so those are lessons from Krishna that come from in the form of other people in our lives, with whom we may have conflicts or differences of opinion. Those are lessons from Krishna that will help improve us. This is why being in an ashram, for example, is so helpful for Westerners in particular, because it teaches them how to be part of a spiritual community. And the vicissitudes that go with that, the uncertainties, the conflicts, the crushes, all the confusion, all the things that come up in that environment, all help promote our spiritual awareness, because we're able to confront and deal with those problems from a Krishna conscious point of view. Not everybody survives, obviously. In my generation, many people got disgusted with ISKCON and left, mostly because, frankly, ISKCON was not able to prepare them for marriage and family life and responsible careers. So it's like, well, I can't just go on giving my life to this organization. I need to have a life. So now we understand better that part of spiritual training is ashram training. Be prepared for your future ashram, whichever it may be, which for most people is grihastha life. So not that brahmachari good, grihastha bad. That was sort of the MO in the 70s. But rather, brahmachari is okay, grihastha is okay. What is your nature? That's what we want to uncover. So in this way, we can minimize those impacts when people don't feel they have to be something other than who they are. This is a beautiful story where Satsarup Maharaj, one of the early disciples, asked Srila Prabhupada, what kind of person does Krishna want us to be? And Prabhupada answered in a very interesting way. He said, you are very sincere. And that's all he said. It's like, oh, you're so sincere that you're willing to be a different person than who you are, as if that were possible. So uncovering who we are is self-realization, being who we are, finding our natural position, sustainable position, one that brings us a great quotient of fulfillment. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. And we can find that in the association of devotees very often. Hope that helps. Okay. Do we have time? How's our time?
Maybe 2 more questions.
Okay.
Is it okay for you?
It's okay with me. If anyone needs to go though for work or anything, don't worry. We'll only be slightly insulted if you get up and walk out. Kartikeya had. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you for class. Something that came up for me during this class is the verse where Krishna talks about tolerating happiness and distress, right? And this question of tolerating happiness is coming up for me, especially when somebody is having difficulty for a prolonged amount of time, and then you're faced with happiness, right? How does one navigate that without, or tolerate it without being thrown for a loop in?
This is like if you have a prolonged period of unhappiness or someone you're dealing with has a prolonged.
Ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, so if we're having, a prolonged period of unhappiness, then this is like Vyasadeva in this chapter. He'd done a lot, but he wasn't satisfied. So we have to ask, what is the cause of that dissatisfaction? In most cases, it's an improper varna or ashram. That Krishna is, by making us feel uncomfortable in our position, he's urging us to make a move into a sustainable varna and ashram. Hare Krishna. You see? Yeah, and it's okay. That doesn't mean the process doesn't work or we're doing it wrong. It just means Krishna is saying, you got to make a move here, buddy.
Thank
So that's when we need mentors. We need, because you see, it's very easy to revert at that point to the mental platform. So, okay, I'm not happy, therefore I got to do something to make myself happy. And what is the mind? Yeah, mind says, good idea. And very ready to take, no problem. I know all about that. Just surrender to me and I'll take care. So to be able to act on intelligence means to, as Vyas is turning to Narada, to be able to avail ourselves of intelligence and people who are able to address these problems, who have successfully addressed them in their lives.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I was just reflecting here on the verse itself, which is saying that, one should endeavor for something which is not obtainable from the highest planet to the lowest. And I was thinking that other religions, like, for example, Christianity, they're kind of like, God has given us such a bounty, so many wonderful things in this world for our enjoyment. And that it's almost ungrateful to not partake of what's been offered. And I was thinking that, from that perspective, it's like, imagine you go to someone's house and they serve you, so many nice preparations to try to please you. And you're just like, I'm not interested in any of this. I want something that is not here and is not in your fridge. It's not, I want to eat something that's not obtainable by you. It's kind of rude, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Krishna gave us this one, and then we're advised, you should try to get that thing which you can't get anywhere here.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like you should be inherently dissatisfied with what's on offer here. So I'm just questioning whether that's a favorable state of mind. It's like perpetually
Right.
dissatisfied with your situation.
When we have so much to enjoy and so many gifts, to say, I'm not going to enjoy it because I want to serve Krishna.
I want something that I can't even get here.
Yes. When you said that, it reminded me of a story. One of my dear godbrothers. We had a Rath Yatra in Sharanagati. Sharanagati is this gorgeous, beautiful, natural place. Rugged. It's 4 hours away from Vancouver, up in the mountains of British Columbia. Just a beautiful place. Wonderful devotees were there. And a visiting godbrother came, and they were treating him very respectfully. And then, do you have any special requests for prasad? He said, well, I'd like an organic mango. And there's organic mango was meant at least 4 hours of driving. Maybe to the smaller town 2 hours away, you might be able to find him. So anyway, and he was serious too. And when he didn't get it, he left. So anyway, I'll tell you who it was later. But the point is that no, we are not being negligent of the bounty of this world by taking up Krishna consciousness. We are, in fact, learning to offer it back to its creator. So in your analogy, let's say you go to, there's a wonderful feast, someone's prepared, and it's okay, well, this looks great, thank you, I'll have some of this and some of this, but I'd really like to sit down with you and take prasadam together. I would really like your association. I really want to see you enjoying this also. You see, so in the same way, we want to offer this world to Krishna. And we want to reciprocate and have a relationship with Krishna. That's, the prasadam is wonderful, but it's the relationship that's important. In that regard, I was just want to share something very sad that, how many here have problems? Okay. All right. Congratulations, sir. So I was speaking with my wife the other day, discussing some problem. And then I learned, attended a meeting and learned that devotees in Russia and in Ukraine and now in Israel are being conscripted to the wars in their respective countries, sent to the front lines and dying. And I was reflecting how any one of those devotees, how gladly they would trade their problems for our problems. So, yeah, let's keep them in our prayers. Bhaktas and bhaktins being sent to fight Hamas in Israel now, and devotees from Russia and Ukraine being forced to fight each other in the battlefield. And if you don't, and in Russia, if you don't join the army, if you refuse, then you're sent to prison for a 15-year term. And the prisoners are then taken out anyway and sent to the front lines in the most dangerous positions to be killed. So they really are damned either way. So yeah, these are the devotees' problems there. So our problems, let's enjoy them today. Let's be grateful for them today. They are very small by comparison. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So Keith is going to do some reflection of your class.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's so good to see you. So good to hear your wonderful message and to be in your association. And I can speak for everybody. We definitely would love to hear from you more. And so there's some things that I looked at as you were speaking. Number one was just looking at the scripture itself, understanding that now that we have this knowledge, that we need to be able to apply it in the proper way in our lives. So I know that that's one of the things that has stood out for myself. Also understanding so understanding that we need to, just one second. Oh, I was thinking also about the fact that after so much wandering, I know that it's true for my life. After so much wandering, we finally come across devotees of Krishna and how much of a boon it's been for my life. And I know that there's so much more that is going to come from it. And I'm actually very grateful. And I was looking at how Krishna consciousness brings pleasure by feeding the soul within our constitutional position with Krishna. And yes, and also the purpose of japa. Okay, sorry, I'm slightly nervous again. But the purpose of japa itself, it confronts our understanding of happiness. We call out for Krishna specifically for shelter. We can treat the mind as a friend as opposed to fighting the mind. We're understanding that the mind itself is kind of like a bad child that wants to go and do its own thing, but understanding that we should just spend time saying, hey, I will take care of your desires after I'm done with chanting. And understanding that the joy of japa comes from the successful navigating of this particular position with the mind. And that number one, also another one that we should associate with devotees who are very rooted in japa. That's one thing that I've been trying to do here. And I really wish to have more association with additional devotees. And we understand also that material happiness never comes without distress. And a lot of people, myself included, we don't always realize that we're suffering. And all of this ultimately is practice for us understanding what we need to do as we come to a close of this life. So as things and the things that we are connected to and the things that we're happy about and the things that bring us pleasure are all taken away as we come to the end. We're able to focus directly on Krishna with our full mind, our full soul, and really can go back home to Godhead. So thank you so much for the message, Prabhu. It's very good to see you. And thank you so much.
Thanks for that. Nice summary.
Hare Krishna.
Well done.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the nice summary. And thank you, Prabhu, for the brilliant class, very enlightening. We're looking forward to your tomorrow's class. So with that, devotees, we have a very simple prasadam, fruit prasadam in the book room. So when you exit, please pick up some fruit prasadam and go. And we have class this evening by Her Grace Prabhupada Priya Mataji here in the temple. And tomorrow morning, Bhagavatam class by His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Kalakantha Prabhu ki jai.